The possibility of an afterlife has been discussed by people for many centuries, but in recent decades this question has come up more and more often. Although, usually such discussions do not have a solid foundation and are based only on the belief in the immortality of the soul. One of those who is trying to explain this mystery from a scientific point of view is Dr. Eben Alexander, a neurosurgeon from North Carolina. He, like many other doctors, never really believed in life after death. But in 2008, everything changed. After waking up from a deep coma, 55-year-old Alexander's beliefs collapsed, giving way to confidence in the existence of a soul that can live separately from the body. One morning in 2008, Eben woke up with a severe headache. He barely made it to Lynchburg Hospital in Virginia, where he worked as a neurosurgeon at the time, and barely stepped through the door before he lost consciousness. An examination revealed that the part of Alexander's brain responsible for thoughts and emotions, which essentially make us human, was paralyzed. According to doctors, this was caused by a rare form of bacterial meningitis that very rarely affects adults. E. coli bacteria had somehow penetrated Eben's spinal fluid and were literally destroying his brain. He was in a vegetative state, and the man's chances of survival were close to zero. Soon, Dr. Eben fell into a deep coma for 7 days, during which he experienced clinical death. The doctors treating him no longer hoped for their colleague to return to the world of the living. However, on the 7th day, Alexander's eyes suddenly opened, and he said, "I was there, outside the body. The world I found myself in was so real that life on earth now seems illusory to me. But I have not stopped appreciating my earthly life. I value it even more now that I have realized what its meaning is," explains Eben Alexander. While in another world, a neurosurgeon made a discovery about how the brain works and became convinced that consciousness does not die. Eben Alexander had this experience about 10 years ago. While his physical body was in a coma, his consciousness found itself in darkness. According to the neurosurgeon, this darkness was not like the darkness on Earth. The doctor compared it to mud, in which he continued to see through it. Later, recalling his journey, Eben Alexander called this place the world as a worm sees it. Having found himself in this visible darkness, the doctor could not remember who he was. Alexander felt himself a part of this uncomfortable matter in which he found himself. However, gradually this feeling was replaced by another. Eben Alexander came to the understanding that he was not a part of this transparent mud. He was only in it. The doctor assumed that there must be a way out of this world. When he thought about how to get out of it, something new appeared before him. Eben Alexander saw faint rays of light descending towards him. The rays were streaming from some invisible center. The doctor strained his mind to understand what this invisible center was. It was an opening through which the rays of light were passing. Having realized this, the doctor began to rise quickly. Having flown into the opening, he found himself in another world. And to get to this world, Eben Alexander only had to think about it. Finding myself in another world, I had the feeling that I was born into this world for the first time, and that before that I had never been born. This is how Alexander describes his first sensations in another world. What did the doctor see in it? Eben Alexander hovered above this world. He saw dense vegetation, similar to that on Earth. But this was not our planet. At the same time, the doctor found these places familiar to himself. He compared this sensation with returning to where he spent several years of his life in early childhood. You can forget about this place in adulthood. But when you see him again, you realize that the memory of him has lived in you all this time. You remember him again and rejoice that you have returned. Eben Alexander continued his journey. Flying over the new world, he saw forests, fields, ponds, people in modest but beautiful clothes. The colors of the clothes resembled the plants and flowers that covered the new world. When Eben Alexander was here, someone spoke to him. But he did not hear these words with his ears. They came to him as knowledge. Through these silent phrases, the doctor learned that he was loved and protected in this world, and that there was nothing to fear. Alexander also learned that he was not in this world for long. Soon Eben Alexander found himself in the familiar visible darkness. While here, fragments of his earthly life, which he had not remembered all this time, began to return to him. He remembered that he had a family, but he could not remember the names of his wife and children. Alexander again thought about the hole through which the light streamed. But this time it was closed to him. When I opened my eyes in my room, earthly life seemed miserable to me. But this feeling was soon replaced by another. The experience made me understand that there is an important meaning in life on earth, Eben Alexander recalls. One of the main discoveries made by Eben Alexander concerns the human brain. The neurosurgeon claims that real, subconscious, thinking occurs not in the brain, but in the soul. We do not have access to this thinking during life on earth. But it helps us in the most difficult moments, when it comes to important decisions in our lives. And what work does our brain do, according to Alexander? The neurosurgeon believes that the human brain is a kind of switch that in physical life switches our consciousness from high to low, adapted to life in a physical body. According to Eben Alexander, our brain does not produce consciousness. It is needed to select the information necessary for life, and also to block our access to knowledge about other worlds. If we knew all the information that is in our soul, it would be more difficult for us to live our earthly life. Why does Eben Alexander speak so confidently about this? He not only received this knowledge while in the other world, but also felt it himself. When he did not remember his life on earth, he was given knowledge about the universe that is impossible to comprehend with the brain. And upon returning to physical life, the neurosurgeon realized that this higher knowledge was again closed to him. Only the feeling of its presence remained. While in another world, Eben Alexander was given knowledge about why there is good and evil in our world. This assumption is made on earth, since we have free will and can choose. By choosing between good and evil, we develop our spirituality. According to Eben Alexander, this is the meaning of earthly life. And you can develop your spirituality only through love and compassion. In 2012, he published a book in which he spoke about his experience in more detail, trying to explain what happened from a medical point of view. His work became a bestseller, and Eben gained many supporters.